Kenya, a country often lauded for its economic progress and vibrant democracy, found itself in the throes of widespread unrest throughout 2024. The catalyst? A wave of youth-led protests, fueled by a potent cocktail of economic hardship, perceived government indifference, and a deep-seated yearning for change. At the heart of the protests was the Finance Bill 2024, a controversial piece of legislation proposing a raft of new taxes and levies. For many young Kenyans already struggling to make ends meet amidst soaring inflation and a lack of job opportunities, the bill was the final straw. They saw it as a blatant attempt by the government to balance its books on the backs of the most vulnerable, while the political elite continued to enjoy a life of privilege. As the cost of living skyrocketed, basic necessities like food, fuel, and transportation became increasingly out of reach for ordinary citizens. The situation was exacerbated by a sense of disillusionment with the government, which many young people viewed as out of touch with their daily realities. The protests, which began in June 2024, quickly gained momentum, spreading from the capital Nairobi to other major cities and towns across the country. Social media became a powerful organizing tool, with hashtags like #taxation-is-theft and #Hash-and-Jaw-revolution or hunger revolution trending widely and galvanizing support for the demonstrations. The government's initial response to the protests was a combination of heavy-handedness and attempts at appeasement. Security forces were deployed in large numbers using tear gas, water cannons, and even live ammunition to disperse the demonstrators. Human rights groups documented numerous cases of police brutality, with dozens of protesters killed and many more injured. In a bid to quell the unrest, President William Ruto announced the withdrawal of the controversial tax bill. He also reshuffled his cabinet, firing several ministers seen as particularly unpopular with the public. However, these concessions did little to assuage the anger of the protesters, who viewed them as too little, too late. Meanwhile, a parallel drama was unfolding within the corridors of power. In a move widely seen as an attempt to consolidate his authority, President Ruto orchestrated the impeachment of his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua. Gachagua, a key ally of Ruto during the 2022 elections, was accused of corruption, abuse of office, and undermining national security. His removal from office further polarized the political landscape, with his supporters accusing Ruto of betrayal and authoritarianism. While the youth-led protests dominated the headlines, Kenya continued to grapple with a range of other pressing challenges, including rising insecurity and violence. In September 2024, the country experienced a surge in school violence, with a spate of arson attacks and mob justice incidents. Analysts attributed this disturbing trend to a complex interplay of factors, including corruption in the education sector, land disputes, exam stress, and the normalization of violence as a means of resolving conflict. Adding to the sense of unease was the persistent threat of terrorism. Al-Shabaab, the Somalia-based Islamist militant group, stepped up its attacks in Kenya, particularly in the northeastern and coastal regions. Despite the government's efforts to counter the group, Al-Shabaab continued to exploit security vulnerabilities, carrying out deadly bombings and ambushes that claimed the lives of civilians and security personnel alike. Violence against women and girls also remained a pervasive problem. According to human rights organizations, thousands of cases of gender-based violence were reported in 2024 alone. The COVID-19 pandemic, with its associated economic hardships and lockdowns, had exacerbated the situation, leaving many women and girls trapped in abusive homes and with limited access to support services. As 2024 drew to a close, Kenya found itself at a critical juncture. The youth-led protests, though seemingly quelled, had exposed deep fissures in Kenyan society, highlighting the urgent need for economic justice, political accountability, and a more inclusive approach to governance. The impeachment of Deputy President Gachagua left a power vacuum in the government and raised questions about President Ruto's commitment to the rule of law and democratic principles. With his authority seemingly strengthened but his popularity waning, Ruto faced the daunting task of restoring public trust and uniting a deeply divided nation. Looking ahead, several key factors will shape Kenya's trajectory. The country is in dire need of a new electoral commission, as the terms of the current commissioners have expired. A credible and independent electoral body is essential for ensuring free and fair elections in 2027 and beyond. There is also growing pressure for constitutional reforms to address the winner-take-all nature of Kenyan politics. which has often fueled ethnic tensions and post-election violence. The international community, too, has a role to play in supporting Kenya's journey towards stability and prosperity. This includes providing financial assistance, technical expertise, and diplomatic pressure to encourage good governance, respect for human rights, and the fight against corruption. Ultimately, however, the responsibility for building a more just and equitable Kenya rests with its people, particularly its young people, who have shown that they are no longer willing to accept the status quo.